Hey everybody, it's Daniel. Welcome back to Spain to Go, the best podcast in the entire multiverse for all things Spain. I'm here with Melissa Parks. Melissa Parks is a coach and a therapist who helps globally mobile people navigate life, building a career, and their mental health in an international context. Hi, Melissa.
Hi, Daniel. I'm so excited to be here today. I wish I was uh, physically in Spain with you, though. I'm just in my.
Physically in Spain is not a bad place to be. So you've recently written a book. Why don't you give us the, I don't know, Cliff's Notes version of who you are and why we're here?
Yeah. Ooh, always hard to do the summarized version. I'm much better with longer, but we only have so much time here. So,
Ooh,
um, I used to live in Spain. I'm originally from the U.S. I moved to Spain in 2008, around there. I lived in Spain for 7 years, lived in the Netherlands for 3 years, and I had quite the journey through that, my own emotional ups and downs, while also becoming a therapist to expats and other globally mobile clients. And I decided when I moved back to the US 7 years ago that I was going to write a book about it. So, and that book is finally, it's been several years in progress. It's finally going to be coming out this year, June 23rd, 2026. And it's called the long version of it's called A Compassionate Mess, but the subtitle is A Therapist, Her Monsters, and a Journey to Self Acceptance.
that's a good subtitle. We'll talk about that a little bit later. A Compassionate Mess is the name of the book. Um, so do you remember how we met?
Yes, I do. I do. Daniel, uh, do you remember how we met?
I remember, yeah, my friend Jane was organizing a mindfulness course, and I didn't know what mindfulness was,
Yes.
but
Yes,
she talked me into going.
and you came to my class, which was I thought was just going to be non-native English speakers, and then you showed up, and you were a native English speaker, and a teacher, and you were a Buddhist. You introduced yourself as a Buddhist, and I was like, oh my God, this is my first like I taught like intro to mindfulness classes, but that was the first time I was going to teach a series, and here you were, and my inner critic freaked out.
Your inner critic freaked out. Yeah, that's interesting. I've been doing meditation. I didn't know what mindfulness was because we didn't
Yes.
have any specific word for it back in the
Yeah.
day. It was just, you're doing meditation because
Yes.
Buddha. And yeah, I mean, I am pleased to know that I had that effect on people as a Buddhist. Like, I don't usually go around saying that I'm a Buddhist, but I have been practicing for a long time, and there's no reason why I would be, sitting there judging you all the time as a Buddhist. So, you didn't really have to worry, but
True, right? That's
yeah.
it. I think if when you know about like Buddhism, it is like yeah, the mindfulness, the modern spin on it is also yeah non-judgmental. So there was no reason probably to think that a student of Buddhism would come into my classroom and be judging me. But my
Yeah.
inner critic didn't care about that. It was
Yeah.
just like you're gonna mess this up.
Also, all of the like Asian traditions are about respecting the guru, so you wouldn't have
Ooh,
to
yes, I
worry.
did not feel like a guru. So, but that is good. That's good for me. We got through the class. It was a 4 week series. I remember at the end of the class, we went and had some tapas, and then I don't know if I saw you again after that, Daniel. I don't know. We became Facebook friends, and then I have this feeling like I see people, but I don't really see them. I
Yeah, I
think I
don't
moved to
think we
Amsterdam shortly
really
after.
saw each other. Anyway, so that was in Madrid, and it was about 10 years ago, I
Oh
think.
my God, it was.
Um,
Yeah.
Now you're doing this whole thing where you're a coach for the globally
Yes.
mobile or globally mobile, people who move
Yeah.
from country to country, I guess. Um, what are some of the psychological aspects of that people need to think about, before just going somewhere?
Yeah, before you just hit the road. Well, I mean, I think one of the biggest things is that your problems that you have back home usually have a way of finding themselves into your suitcase. So usually I think there's an expectation, that we're going to go abroad, we're going to make a big change, and usually that stuff, will find you again there. And maybe new stuff too, or stuff that you've dealt with previously, like if you've dealt with anxiety or depression. Even if it's an exciting transition, it's a huge change, and that stuff can kind of come creeping back in.
Yeah. I wrote an article about finding happiness abroad where I sort of talked about this, and it was inspired on something you posted on Facebook, I
Okay.
guess. When we started talking about like let's do the podcast, I just ended up writing this big long thing.
I'll have to read that.
And I mentioned that you're probably going to bring a certain number of your problems with you.
Hmm.
There's also a lot of like changes though. I moved abroad when I was 21, and so I had a whole bunch of psychological changes
Yes. Yeah.
that I also, didn't have any idea what I was getting into, and I didn't do a lot of research, and I was just caught by surprise by, all the
Yeah.
psychological changes. I think it worked out fine, but I don't know. What do you have to say about living abroad, maybe changing your personality?
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, it's funny. I think back about when I moved abroad, my sister told me, she's like, just don't change. Don't change, Melissa. Like, I was like, really? I want to change. I think I'm ready for a change. I think I think there are a couple things that can happen. I think sometimes we can become too much of a chameleon and change, like, and not be ourselves, right? Just in an effort to adapt and to fit in. So I think that can happen. And then I also think, you can just grow just as you might have grown wherever you were and change and adapt and maybe actually like shed some layers and become even more of who you actually truly are.
Yeah, I mean, Buddhism would tell us that we're going to change anyway,
Yeah.
because everything is constantly in process.
Yes. Yeah.
And
But I do think it happens faster when you're living abroad. I just think you're just constant, like, the conversations you have, the things you're exposed to, you're constantly being challenged by a new language or a new culture, and I, I think it happens faster. I feel like my
yeah,
life, like I just so much more happened in those 10 years I lived abroad than just back in my hometown.
yeah, the language thing, especially, like if you have a whole personality built up in English and then you move to Spain
Yes.
and you're trying to have conversations in Spanish,
Yeah.
like your personality is not going to be developed in the same way in Spanish. You
Yeah.
can express, at the beginning, you can express three-quarters of what you want to.
Yeah.
So you're going to end up, expressing something,
Mm-hmm.
not necessarily not necessarily what you considered your unique personality to be
Yeah.
previously. So you might end up
Yeah.
with a, kind of split personality where you're one person in one language and one person in the other.
Yes.
I don't talk to a lot of psychologists, so this is just my observation, and you might think I'm just making this up, but
I don't
yeah,
actually, and I have an interesting story to share about that.
sure.
When I was in my master's program, I went to grad school in Spain, and when I was in my master's program, one of my teachers had also studied in the U.S. She was Spanish, but had studied in the U.S., and so she was also aware of this about how your personality can be different. And we had to record videos of ourselves just talking about random stuff, but just to so we could watch ourselves on video and our like mannerisms and facial expressions and tone of voice. And she made me do it in English and Spanish, and I was like two different people. It was fascinating to watch, and I don't know. I can't tell you about any interesting research about this, but I know it's out there, and you should get someone on here to talk more about it.
Okay, yeah. So let me see. You recently wrote on Facebook, this is what inspired my article, I guess, about people finding happiness in another country and how usually they're disappointed by this. This is a
Yeah.
little bit of what we talked about a minute ago,
Yeah.
but I don't know. Do you think there's not a lot of shortcuts to happiness as far as I know? And I mean, what I wrote in my article is happiness is overrated anyway.
Yes.
Are you agreeing with that too?
I
I would
agree.
think that like your whole job is to tell people they can be happier.
No, I think that's a myth about what therapy or just like any like well-being stuff is about. But maybe that's also my, how I bring in the mindfulness and self-compassion, which is all based on Buddhism. And I just don't think I think happiness is overrated. I think the more we chase happiness, like the harder the more elusive it is. Right?
Yes. I was reading something yesterday where the guy was talking about how, yeah, obviously we're not designed for permanent happiness.
Yeah.
Designed is, kind of an odd way of saying it. But if we were out in our ancestral environment, out on the savannah or something in Africa, and we just became permanently happy, we would not be motivated to go out and, find something to eat or any of the things we have to do to survive. Like we have to be sort of, motivated by something, and suffering is what
Yeah.
motivates people to get out of bed in the morning a lot of times. Like you got to get out of bed to
Yeah.
pay your bills, and that's just how it works. And
Yeah.
unless you're retiring in Spain with a whole lot of money, you're probably gonna have to do something like that in Spain too.
You will have to get out of bed in Spain too, and hopefully you'll have some good like cafe con leche or whatever it is, to inspire you to get up. Um,
Yeah.
but I do think so. I don't tell my clients to get motivated by suffering. I don't say it in those exact words. We talk a lot about values and what are your core values that motivate you, and a lot of times those values like things like okay relationships or learning, those things are going to require suffering. They're going to require you to confront fear, sadness, frustration, and but if you don't try to do those things, you're going to look back on your life and probably not feel very fulfilled.
Yeah, you absolutely need to suffer and confront that suffering and try to suffer nobly. And
Yes, yes, yeah,
I've
but I
never
do
done
try to.
therapy for obvious, reasons, which you could probably guess. But the idea I get from, a lot of pop culture and stuff is that people think that suffering is like a bad thing and it means something is wrong
Yeah.
with them and they need to avoid it.
Hmm. Yeah,
And
and
I
I
just don't
do.
think that's realistic.
I don't think it is either.
Okay.
And I do, but I don't know. I feel like suffering is that word suffer is very like very heavy. And again, that's not like not necessarily what I would use with my clients, but just feeling discomfort, right? Well, then that's like suffering in like a lighter version of suffering.
Feeling discomfort. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. I don't think if you're experiencing depression, if you're experiencing panic attacks, like that's like really what I think about like suffering. And those things you don't necessarily need to like you can see a therapist, and I don't usually work with people in going through that anymore, but you could see a therapist and a therapist could help you through that stuff. And but a lot of times that stuff comes from avoiding things that are uncomfortable, like in our day-to-day life, right? It could be something like, ooh, I kind of feel a little anxious in my body. I don't want to do the thing that makes me feel anxious, like go speak in another language or go to a language class or something. And well, you're gonna have a hard time living abroad in a country
Yeah.
where you
You've
don't
got
speak the language.
well, it's fighting those monsters,
It's
which
fighting the monsters,
makes
yes.
you braver, which may lead to situations which create more happiness in your life
Yeah.
through getting out of your comfort zone, etc.
Exactly. Eventually, you get to the happiness, I think, but it might look a little different than
Yeah,
what
yeah, and it's
yeah
not
than
like,
what the advertisers are selling you.
oh God, the advertisers. Yeah, this is something I seriously think about where we've all, you know, grown up in front of a TV or whatever, and we've seen like these yogurt commercials where some woman is enjoying her yogurt like more than I've ever enjoyed anything in my life.
Yes.
And if you take that like seriously, which it's hard not to if you've seen it thousands and thousands of times,
Yeah.
you kind of think like, oh, I must be emotionally broken. I've never enjoyed
Yeah.
yogurt like that
Yeah.
or anything.
I'm still trying to find a perfume that like has that effect of those perfume commercials where they're like wandering on a beach
Oh
and
God, yeah, okay.
like
Yeah,
beautiful
that's
fashion.
yeah,
I
yeah,
did not find that abroad. No, I didn't.
Yeah, okay. So, in other words, the reality of life abroad may be slightly different than the Instagram version.
Yes, I think that is a great way to sum it up. And it's still worth it, right? I don't live abroad anymore, but not because I didn't love it. I just am choosing to prioritize being closer to family right now. But honestly, Daniel, I was listening to you one of the episodes of your podcast yesterday, and I was like, I want to hop on a plane. I want to get back to Madrid. I do feel like part of my heart is still in Madrid. I
Yeah.
that is home to me still.
Oh, yeah. Madrid does that to people.
Yeah,
Do you know
yeah.
which episode you were listening to? Was it
It was
Madrid
the
Food
one
Tour?
with Lauren Alois when you were
Yeah,
talking about
Lauren
the
and
food
the
tour.
Devour Tours. If you go to expatmadrid.com/devour, you can sign up for one of her Devour food tours. I will get a small commission. Thank you for signing up for things like that. It's a way to support the podcast, etc. expatmadrid.com/devour. It's a little
I
commercial
love it.
break spontaneously worked in there. Um, yeah, so Madrid definitely does that to you. Life abroad may be difficult at times. It may also be totally worth it.
Yeah.
I don't think there's much to lose. People worry that, I don't know, that if you go abroad and you stay there for a year or two and then you go back home, that you've somehow failed. But I also don't think that's really a problem. You tried something. I don't know.
Exactly, exactly. I and in so my book ends right before I move back home, and it is something I talk about a little bit about how hard that was to make the decision. Because even after 10 years, I kind of felt like, wow, why would I leave this life behind? Who will I be on the other side of being an expat? Uh, and there's also an emotional piece, right? Just how like you might confront some of those difficult emotions moving abroad. A lot of times people don't expect the difficult emotions of repatriating, of moving back to your home country.
Repatriating, yeah.
Yeah, that's what they call it. Even though often we also hear that word like when you move a dead body, like when you're deceased and you
Oh,
move
you're
your body back home.
repatriating. Yeah.
Repatriation services. But repatriating is just going back to your home country in whatever state you are.
I've heard of the repatriation services,
Yes.
not something I'm hoping to be in the market for anytime soon.
No.
So another thing you've written about,
Yeah.
consulting my list of questions here, is that people are often searching for a feeling of home.
Yes.
And this is a bit strange in my mind that people would go thousands of miles looking for a feeling of home. Do you think that it might be counterproductive to move thousands of miles away looking for a feeling of home?
I think it depends on, well,
We both
yes.
agree that Madrid is kind of home, and we're both
Madrid is
from
home. Yes.
many thousands of miles away. I think it might work for some people, it might not work for others,
Yeah.
and
I think that's a pretty good way to say it, Daniel. That's kind of where my mind is going. And I definitely feel like I found home by going abroad. I think for a lot of people who end up going abroad, they never felt at home where they were, right? Maybe it was the actual city that they were in wasn't a good fit for them, right? And but I think a lot of times too, we become this version of ourselves just because that's what other people want for us or because it's what worked for us. And so it's kind of like I think for a lot of people going to college in the US, this happens to them. They like it's like, oh, now I get to go reinvent myself. I didn't have that experience. I went to college close by. I went to like a really conservative religious college, and so actually it was a terrible experience. That's for another a story for another day. But going abroad felt more like the opportunity. Although again, then I like, yeah, it took a lot of time and my own therapy to actually find that version of myself that felt kind of like more like my authentic self that then made me feel at home. So
yeah, I mean, it is possible that home is where you already are.
yes, yeah,
And if you go abroad and then realize that home is where you already are, you can also go back. I don't
yeah,
know.
and that's kind of the spoiler of what my book is about too. Is about like,
Oh,
yeah,
so
turning inwards to find home. So
kind of a circular plot. Yeah, like I
yes.
don't even know what people are expecting to happen. I imagine they go to some, pueblo in Andalusia, and the light is, hitting the rooftops at a certain angle, and they're just like, oh, that's it. I feel
That's
like
what I
I
believe.
am at home. And
I don't think anybody's like, I think I would like to feel at home. I think I will move abroad. Like, I don't think it's ever that like straightforward. I know for me, it was more of like something buried inside that I was kind of hoping for, but it was definitely more like Spain is fun, and I studied abroad in Spain, and I was like, I felt really energized and alive, and just I don't know. I want to go back and feel that again. It wasn't very logical. It was very much like I think I need to do that even though it doesn't make any sense.
even though it doesn't make any sense, yeah, sure. If you're not expecting it to make any sense, that's uh, you're not putting a whole lot of pressure on yourself to,
Yes.
you know, have a specific experience, I guess, in that case.
Yeah. Yeah. It worked out.
Um,
I think that.
I wrote down here, do you think identity is tied to a place or a social group? Because moving far away, you could also feel foreign forever. Like I'm dealing with feeling
Yeah.
foreign forever over here. I'm fully Spanish now, and I guess I'm like legally Catalan. And I'm
Yep.
trying to figure out what that means, but at the same time, like I'm still a red-blooded American and
Yeah.
foreign forever.
Oh, I
So,
mean, I feel the same. I live like blocks away from where I grew up, which was not my plan. When I moved back to the US, I was like, I'm going to be at least like a good drive. Not what happened. I see people that I went to high school with all the time. It is, it's wild. And I probably seem like the exact same person to them. And I feel like I'm not at all. I mean, and then it's partly too, like my husband and I, we speak Spanish at home. So like I didn't
ooh,
grow up speaking Spanish. It's almost like my home, my physical house is like the place I feel most myself because I have that connection, especially to the language. And we met abroad, and so I have, he knows that version of me. And but I think a lot of people move back home thinking that then they won't feel foreign. And sorry, I think once you go abroad, it's like you're never gonna feel like completely at home again, kind of.
ooh, man, you can be foreign in a foreign country, and then you can go back home and also feel foreign.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I haven't spent that much time back in the US, so I don't deal with that very much. But yeah,
Yeah. But if anyone's listening, don't expect to to like just I don't know, you can't like leave that whole identity you create abroad. You can't leave it abroad. It's part of who you are now.
yeah, um, hmm. Yeah, I have some maybe strange Buddhist ideas about identity anyway, so we
Ooh.
don't need to get into it. But yeah, feeling like you're from one place or from another, feeling Spanish. People used to ask me, "Oh, do you feel Spanish?"
Yeah.
It's been a while since anybody asked me that, but now that I am legally Spanish, etc., I was like, "Do I feel Spanish?" I don't know. I've got a second last name, um,
Wow.
but it's not. I don't know. What is that supposed to feel like?
Exactly. I know for me, I spent the first couple years in Spain feeling like I wanted to feel Spanish, and I wanted to fit in with all the Spanish people and use their idioms
Yeah.
and stuff. But then I think I became too much of a chameleon because then I think I also lost part of like my international American side, I guess.
I think fitting in is also sort of overrated, but
I think so too.
probably depends on what kind of person you are. I'm not a huge fitting in kind of guy, I guess.
Yeah.
Um, so a lot of people move abroad for love. Any
Yeah.
idea about that? Any thoughts on moving abroad for love?
Yeah. Yes. I think that's one of those things that I was kind of secretly hoping to find abroad. There was no specific person. I moved abroad. I was one of those auxiliares de conversación. That's how I got myself over in Spain. And but I really hoped that I would find somebody,
I mean, you did,
and I
right?
did, and I did.
Okay.
But it was a disaster. We were together for 4 years. but my book actually opens with us breaking up. And then trying to figure out how the hell I was going to put my life back together after that. So I think I was too focused on the love. So, and I think it happens a lot. I think it happens a lot with people when they move abroad, either for a specific person or they meet someone they're in love with there. It can feel so disorienting to be in a new country that partner could kind of stabilize you. And sometimes, at least the people I work with, a lot of times, like there are so many red flags in the relationship, but you don't see them because it's like, but they're like my home now, and they're my best friend now, and they're my language partner, and
Yeah.
so that happened to me. I know lots of people who move abroad for love or have met somebody abroad, and it works out great. And for me, that ended up being the case. The next partner I met is my now husband, and ended up being a great fit. But for me, I really needed to. I think it was a better fit for me. Like, I dated a Spaniard for 4 years. My husband is from Venezuela, actually, but he had also lived in Madrid for a long time. And I think for us, like, it was a really good fit to like both be foreigners with a love for Spain. Like, I think that worked out. That was a better fit.
Sure. Yeah. I don't mention this much. My original pretext for moving to Madrid was like some girl who was living in Madrid on an Erasmus scholarship or something similar to that. Maybe she didn't even have the scholarship. Maybe she was just, yeah, she was one of these Central European people living a highly subsidized life, basically, and she was out in Spain having an adventure. And I was on vacation, and I met this girl, and I was like, I'm gonna go back to Madrid. A couple weeks later, I was back in Arizona, thinking like, I'm gonna go back to Madrid and be with this girl. And that didn't actually work out, but it was
Yeah.
fine because it got me abroad, and I didn't have all my hopes tied up in this girl. It was just kind of a nice pretext to go to one place rather than another,
I
because I wanted to get out of Arizona anyway.
Daniel, I can relate so much. There was actually like an Italian guy in a small village on the Amalfi Coast that I met like 3 months before moving to Madrid, and I think I just need. Sometimes you just need that like, okay, this is like almost like you're telling yourself a story of like, this is why I'm going, and
Yeah,
I lassoed my hopes around him and went over, and I went and visited him, and it was a mess. So that
yeah,
didn't happen, and for the best. But like you, I got myself on the other side of the ocean, and the rest is history.
yeah. It's kind of like I remember telling people this story and having them be like disappointed that
Yes.
I'm not still with this girl, 20 years later.
Yeah.
And I was just like, yeah, it's ancient history, and it got me abroad, and here we are. But
Yeah.
some of this does lead into the next question, which is about people who move abroad for love and end up having a breakup
Yeah.
where suddenly they're, 8,000 miles from home
Yeah.
and they're single unexpectedly and they're trying to rebuild. Any thoughts
Yeah.
on that?
Um, you should work with someone like a therapist or a coach. That's it. That'll be my little like plug for my services, or there's plenty of me out there. It's a lot to rebuild, and I think really, and that's not just it's you're essentially doing what you would have had to do already when you moved abroad if there hadn't been that person, but you're also dealing with the grief of losing a relationship, and it's a lot to do at the same time, and to depending on where you might not have a great social support system set up for yourself, and that makes it harder too. But it's possible. I mean, you could always move back home if you want to. When this happened to me, I spent a lot of time thinking like, does this mean I should move back home? And I'm really glad I didn't. I'm really glad I stayed. And it's there are a lot of pieces that go into like making a life abroad work, and I think it's things. Social support is huge, right? And so being able to find those people, hobbies. But I think a lot of it is. I think what people struggle the most with is like the grief of it. Honestly, is they want the happiness, right? They want to get back to the next relationship, the time when it doesn't affect them, and depending on the relationship, it often does come with disappointment and sadness and closing a chapter.
Yeah, I guess I don't think of it as grief, but like there's a processing phase that you go through.
Yeah. 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 It's a loss. It maybe,
Yeah.
yeah, you don't have to label it as grief, but it is, yeah, processing emotions about it.
Yeah, okay. So, in other words, you can move abroad for love, you can break up abroad. The key is that suffering exists in the world, and you're going to have suffering one way or another. So you might as well, learn to suffer nobly, I think,
Yes. And
as
have
the Stoics would
if you're in
say.
if you're in Spain, then you can go meet your new post relationship friends at a tapas bar and have some great jamon and manchego and vinos. And it's I had a friend tell me when my ex broke up with me, she's like, there is no better place to in the world than Madrid to go, like, write your next chapter. I think is it,
Write your
which
next
is,
chapter. Yeah,
yeah,
sure.
yeah,
Well, so you've written a book. We talked about this a little bit at
yeah,
the beginning. I liked the subtitle to your book a
yeah,
lot, and it ties into some of the things we've been talking about here.
yeah.
Could you tell us what the subtitle is and maybe explain a little bit more?
Yes. So it's A Compassionate Mess is the kind of the main title, and then A Therapist, Her Monsters, and A Journey to Self-Acceptance.
A therapist, her monsters, and a journey to self-acceptance.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So in the book, I do something that therapists don't usually do. We're usually trained to not talk about ourselves. And I don't talk about myself like in sessions with clients unless it serves them. But I've struggled with mental health stuff my whole life, and I always felt so inauthentic when I showed up in a kind of in that with my clients, basically feeling like I had to be this polished professional virgin who had like overcome all of my issues because I hadn't. Right. I mean, and also as we're talking about, human life is full of suffering, and like, so it's not like a therapist is gonna get to an end point where she's no longer feeling, where she's no longer suffering. So I share about my own story. It's a memoir, but I also talk about my journey seeing a therapist, becoming a therapist myself. Oh my God, that's so. If anybody's listening and they're like in the process of homologación to do their career in Spain, I'm sorry, it's such a process, and I talk about it a little bit in the book.
Okay.
So the monsters, are just my own things I've struggled with: anxiety, I had an eating disorder in college. I talk about insomnia, and also how insomnia kept showing up for me abroad too, because I think that's another way that some of the suffering, the challenges can show up. Is it can be in our bodies too, right? It's not always like how we're feeling necessarily. Sometimes we might think we're feeling great and our bodies are like, hey, there's some stuff going on here. This is actually really stressful. And that's what I found in some of the times.
Okay.
I have to tell you though, Daniel, you said something about like slaying your demons before we got on the call.
Oh, yeah.
And all I keep thinking now is Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I'm like, oh, I kind of like, maybe this is my like,
Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Yeah, I mean the monsters thing.
yeah,
There's got to be a hero to go out and slay the monsters. Buffy the Vampire Slayer, of course, was a good example of that.
yes.
But here in Barcelona, we've got Sant Jordi, who I recently wrote about.
Hey,
Going
yes.
out and slaying the dragon.
Okay, I don't know the full San Jordi story. I've been lucky to be in Barcelona a couple times during the holiday, but I didn't remember there was a dragon. I only remember the books and the flowers.
Yeah, yeah. Saint Jordi is the same person as Saint George, and he goes to a town, and the
Okay.
townspeople are feeding sheep to the local dragon to keep him from eating people. And
Okay.
eventually the dragon is unsatisfied with the sheep and he starts demanding like the townspeople. And so the townspeople are feeding other townspeople to the dragon. And eventually like St.
Yeah.
George shows up when they're about to sacrifice the princess to the dragon. And
Okay.
he puts an end to the whole thing by saving the princess, killing the dragon, happily ever after, etc. I don't think he
Okay.
marries the princess in any of the stories, but you know,
Not
he
fully Disney version
not,
then.
yeah, it's not a Disneyfied version, but it is a good metaphor.
Yeah.
Um, well, so when does your book come out?
Book comes out June 23rd of this year, 2026. And the very end, like the journey to self acceptance, I have to add on that too, is all about me finding self compassion, the practice of self compassion, which has a big mindfulness piece. It's kind of, you came to my mindfulness class, and after that, I got really into this practice of mindful self compassion, which is very much Buddhism based too.
Yeah, different types of Buddhism might emphasize different things. I've heard of it called metta, I think.
Yes. Yeah,
You're doing
like loving
compassion
kindness is
for
the.
others, compassion for yourself, compassion for an enemy or difficult person.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. So that's like in the Western world, they call it, English speaking world will say, loving kindness.
Loving
But this
kindness.
kind of goes even further to emphasize putting yourself before everyone else, which, I think people are like, oh, what? That's so selfish. That's so narcissist. But I think we struggle so much to prioritize ourselves that sometimes we have to really emphasize putting ourselves first in order to grow that compassion for others as well.
Yeah, who was it? Maybe like, I don't know, somebody who I saw on a video was talking about going through this self-compassion thing and how it was just really, really hard for her. You know,
Yeah.
if you've got a inner critic that's always telling you awful things or whatever, it might be tough to practice self-compassion.
Yeah. I think the people, not everyone, but like you definitely see memes on Instagram or social media that are about like self love and it's, there's hearts and I'm thinking like Valentine's, like, and stuff. I don't know. I feel like it makes it sound so cheesy and easy. And it's not. It's really counterintuitive to talk to yourself in a kind way. So I talk about that too, like just, you know,
Okay,
learning about it myself. And so, anyways, go get the book. I have. I'll share the link with you, Daniel. The where people can sign up for updates, and depending on when
sure.
this airs,
Is it
we'll
like
have links to
melissaparks.com/memoir, for
Yes, it
example?
is. Yes, it
Okay,
is.
that would be really easy for me to just say, and people could maybe type that out. melissaparks.com/memoir. Melissa Parks, the normal way.
With an S at the end.
Yeah, Parks, melissaparks.com/memoir. That takes people to the like sign up for the email list type thing in the book launch page.
Yeah.
So if you would like to sign up for the email list, that would be the place to do it. People can also find out more about you on melissaparks.com. I don't know, is the book going to be on Amazon or is it going to
It's going to be on
be,
Amazon. It's going to be on Amazon, and it's also going to be you're going to be able to get it from smaller bookstores too. I don't know about in Spain, but like bookshop.org, and definitely go to that page on my website because as we get closer to launch, I'll have a full page with all the different links too, and there will be you can get a physical copy or you can get an ebook. And my sister is really pushing me to do an audio book version, but that's going to be a couple years out.
okay. I don't know exactly what the title of this episode will be, but the name Melissa Parks will be spelled out clearly,
Perfect.
at least, if not in the title, then at least very close to the title. So if you're having any doubts about how to spell it, check that out. melissaparks.com/memoir. It comes out in about a month on June 23rd, you said, right?
23rd. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know, Daniel. I think you need the word suffering in the title. Like we've talked about that a lot. Although I don't know if it's a
Yeah.
good selling piece.
Suffering abroad. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, like it's tough also being online these days because like so many people are out there living their best lives and
Yeah.
in this obnoxious in your face way.
Yes.
And I'm a fairly positive person, but I'm not just jumping and laughing euphorically in front of important monuments or whatever these Instagram people do these days. Like,
Well, I struggle, Daniel, because it's been 7 years since I lived abroad, and I wasn't taking any pictures of myself 7 years ago. I was taking pictures of beautiful things
yeah,
because that's what I wanted, and social media didn't really care if I showed my face. And so I'm like, I don't really have very many pictures of me living abroad, and
oh yeah.
that's not very good for marketing.
Yeah, I don't have like I was looking through pictures of me also recently, and yeah, most of them are not in front of important monuments at the very least. Like
Yeah,
it's just not
yeah,
something anybody was doing back in the day, and you
it
know,
wasn't. No, that's
now
not.
I'm too
So
old to be photographed.
I'm again when I was listening to the episode with you and Lauren yesterday, it was just making me so nostalgic for those earlier years in Madrid too. I mean, I'm sure Madrid and Spain, right? Like I know you're in Catalonia now, and it's still great, but there was something really magical about it. I think in like the early 2010s, like, um, yeah.
Yeah, the economic crisis was
Oh
important,
yeah.
and
Yeah, I don't know if that was the magical part, but
yeah, it made things less magical there for a while. But you know, that's all part of life.
yeah, we got to experience a very big piece of history in
Yeah,
Spain. That's I guess exciting, and um, I know I had a lot of English classes because people were trying to boost their CVs to
oh yeah,
improve their English. So
yeah.
that was an interesting experience too. I ended up doing I always found like the people who liked my classes the most were people that I kind of felt like I was providing therapy to,
Okay.
not intentionally, but just who I am with my training. It just kind of how it happened. So yeah. Anyways, I'm going off on a tangent.
Okay. Any final thoughts on how to practice self-compassion as an expat?
Yes. Um, Baby steps. I will say it's baby steps. And I have, honestly, I'm going to share with you, Daniel, I have an email series that people can sign up for. And it's from self criticism to self compassion. And it's a 5-day email series where I share some guided meditations and I talk about the challenges of practicing self compassion and also, why it's still good to do as well. So
Would
that
that be at
maybe that's a good
like
place to start.
melissaparks.com/newsletter or something?
I'm working on the landing page, so as we speak. But we'll say, yeah, I'm not sure exactly where it's going to be,
Okay.
Daniel. So,
Generally, melissaparks.com is where people can find you. You're also on Instagram as Melissa Parks PhD.
yeah,
There we
I'm
go.
on. That's my official name on there. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Facebook sometimes, and LinkedIn also.
LinkedIn. Okay, sounds good. Well, thank you very much for being on the podcast.
Yeah.
And everybody, check out the book, A Compassionate Mess, coming soon to Amazon, local bookshops, etc. Just go to
All the places.
melissaparks.com/memoir and you will be able to find more information. Sign up for the email list, etc.
Thanks so much,
Nada.
Daniel. It was great conversation.
Yeah, thanks for being here. Bye.